On our wedding day, my husband was replaced. Before leaving, he said he'd be back soon. But the one who walked through the door was his cousin, the one he claimed had relapsed from her old illness. Her eyes sparkled with triumph as she looked at me, a mere blind girl. Yet you dared to scheme your way into marriage with the heir to the Duke of N as his legitimate wife? How utterly presumptuous. So what if Brother Pay married you? Wasn't it my word that left you here alone? But don't despair, though Brother Pay is gone. A new groom awaits. They laced the wedding wine with drugs, then dumped a beggar on me while I was helpless. Soon after, they led a mob to catch us in the act. I was paraded through the streets in a pig cage, spat upon by the crowd before being drowned in the pond. Yet she married Pei as she wished, living a life of marital bliss and lifelong favor. But when I opened my eyes again, I found myself back at our first meeting. The village chief pointed at Pei and asked, Yuan Yuan. He's poisoned and his eyes are injured. Can you heal him? When the village chief led his group over, I was sitting in the small courtyard, lost in thought. Rebirth felt too fantastical to be real. I half believed this moment of peace was merely a beautiful dream before death. Until the village chief called out over the fence, Yuan Yuan. Some injured people arrived in the village looking for a doctor. So I brought them here. I looked up in a daze. The moment I saw those two faces etched deep into my bones, a chill ran through me. I pinched myself hard. The sharp pain in my hand confirmed it. I had truly reincarnated back to the moment I first met Pei. Just like in my past life, he had been carried in on a wooden stretcher by the villagers, dressed in the robes of a high-ranking military commander. I dared not delay and began treating him with all my strength from the start. But his poisoning was severe, though I fought desperately to save his life. I could not restore his sight. I told him the truth plainly. Pei's expression betrayed his disappointment. Yet he forced himself to thank me. To have my life spared is already a blessing. I owe you my deepest gratitude. Miss Sang. But Su Ruatang, disguised as a man by his side, sneered with disdain. What kind of saving grace is that when you couldn't even cure his eyes? We should never have sought out such a rustic quack in the first place. So young, even if she started studying medicine in her mother's womb. How skilled could she possibly be? It's likely her lack of expertise delayed treatment, leading to Brother Pei becoming blind. Pei lowered his gaze. Though he wanted to rebuke her, he waited until she finished speaking before stopping her. Now I realize he must resent me too. Why should I save such an ungrateful ingrate? The village chief pointed at Pei as he pushed open the door and asked me, Yuan Yuan. He says he was poisoned and his eyes were damaged, leaving him blind. Can you treat him? I stopped the village chief decisively. My expression cold. I won't treat him. It's not that I can't, it's that I won't. The village chief understood my meaning. He frowned, glancing at the others before leaning close to whisper, What's wrong? Unable to reveal the true reason, I made up an excuse on the spot. They're covered in sword and knife wounds. They clearly aren't good people. I'm afraid. I didn't lower my voice. Pei froze upon hearing this. His vacant eyes turned toward me as he struggled to sit up. Lady physician. We are border garrison commanders, not villains. Our injuries came from enemy ambushes. Please extend your healing hand. I glanced at him. His face was dark and sallow, his features haggard. As he sat up, the movement tugged at his abdominal wound, causing a thin sheen of sweat to bead on his forehead. Veins stood out prominently, making him look utterly wretched. Seeing his disheveled state, I felt a strange satisfaction and couldn't help but look at him a little longer. Immediately, someone beside him shifted half a step, blocking my view. Wasn't that Su Ruatang? Her eyes burning with resentment? I narrowed my eyes, feigning curiosity. Are you truly proper soldiers? The group supporting each other exchanged glances and nodded in agreement. I pointed at Su Ruatang, my expression thick with skepticism. How could proper soldiers be accompanied by a woman? Could she be a military prostitute? It suddenly clicked. Ah. So that explains the ambush. Peiyu couldn't hold back, his face darkening instantly. Su Ruitang was so enraged her hands trembled uncontrollably, unable to utter a single word. TSK TSK. Who'd have thought she'd break down so easily? Truly fragile. Su Ruitang was Peiyu's cousin. Her mother had died young. Life under her stepmother's rule proved too harsh. So Pei's mother brought her to the Duke of An's residence at a young age, raising her with the pampering reserved for a legitimate daughter. She and Peiyu had grown up together since childhood, their bond naturally extraordinary. Even when she capriciously insisted on disguising herself as a man to accompany him on military campaigns, he never refused her. Such blatant favoritism, yet in my past life, blinded by love and ignorance, I never saw through it. Instead, I believed Peiyu's empty promises of repaying his debt by caring for me forever. Following him onto the battlefield, I tended to countless wounded soldiers, only to plunge myself into an abyss of no return. Truly, good deeds go unrewarded. Since that's the case, I might as well become the villain. I deliberately exposed Su Ruitang's true identity as a woman and humiliated her with my words. After all, in my past life, after my marriage to Peiyu was confirmed, she pointed her finger at me countless times, hurling insults. You spend your days mingling with soldiers, having long lost your virtue. How dare you even dream of marrying Brother Pei? Merely fulfilling my duty as a physician to save lives became her weapon to attack me. Now, exposing her true identity as a woman is simply returning the favor. Su Ruitang's face twisted with hatred, as if she wanted to rush forward and scratch my face. But Peiyu stopped her. Peiyu's face darkened, his chest heaving with visible fury. Yet he suppressed his rage. He bowed his hand toward me. Lady Zhong has been misled. This is my cousin. Sensing my life was in peril, she journeyed from the capital to rescue me. To move freely abroad, she disguised herself as a man. Once my health is restored, I shall send her back. As he spoke, he drew 2 tokens from his robe. One bore the characters Duke of An's residence, the other a bronze fish token. The moment these tokens appeared, I knew I had no room to refuse. So be it. They are fish to be slaughtered, I am the butcher's knife. Such a golden opportunity for vengeance, how could I let it slip? I had the villagers carry Peiyu into the small courtyard. For the other injured villagers, I gave the village chief specially formulated wound medicine and asked him to tend to them. As for Peiyu, after taking his pulse, I delivered the same diagnosis as in my previous life. This poison is vicious. It has completely infiltrated your eyes. Fortunately, it hasn't reached your brain yet. If we can purge it completely, your life can be saved. But his eyes are beyond saving. They must be removed to prevent the poison from spreading. This time, I won't pour my heart and soul into transplanting eyes for him. Peiyu froze, his entire being falling silent. Before he could speak, Su Ruitang piped up. Aren't you researching eye transplant techniques? Can't Brother Pei's eyes be replaced? This wasn't a secret. I had previously transplanted eyes onto a blind yellow dog. Everyone in the village knew it. It wasn't surprising that villagers mentioned it along the way when they brought them here. Thus, I understood why they insisted I treat him. I stroked the teacup in my hand, pondered for a moment, then glanced at her indifferently. That was a dog, not a human. Human meridians are far more complex than a dog's. Success with a dog doesn't guarantee success with a human. Su Ruitang's eyes lit up with hope. She stared at me with unwavering resolve. Brother Pei can't go blind. If you can transplant eyes for dogs, surely humans shouldn't be beyond your skill? It is possible. But where would the eyes come from? I paused. a faint curve touching my lips as I met her gaze with peculiar intensity. You care so deeply for Brother Pei. Surely you'd be willing to give him your own eyes. If that's the case, I can prepare to perform the transplant right now. Su Ruitang froze. Her fingers tightened unconsciously, a flicker of panic crossing her face. But the next moment, she knelt beside Pei Yu, clasping his hand. Brother Pei, Ruitang is willing. Ruitang has suffered a hard life. After mother died, I was tormented by my heartless stepmother. Only thanks to Auntie and Brother Pei bringing me to the Duke of An's residence did I survive and grow up carefree. Even if Brother Pei were to ask for my life, I would gladly give it. If mother knew of this in the afterlife, she would surely praise me for my unwavering devotion. The flicker of consideration in Pei Yu's expression vanished instantly. His pupils darkened sharply, his gaze carrying clear meaning. Yet he still curved his lips into a faint smile, offering gentle reassurance to Su Ruitang. Your heart is in the right place. But please, never mention the matter of exchanging eyes again. Su Ruitang exhaled a quiet sigh of relief. I watched in admiration. With just a few words, she had not only expressed her sincerity but also completely ruled out the possibility of using her eyes. After all, she was the only bloodline left by Pei Yu's aunt. If the eyes had truly been swapped, the public outcry would likely have crushed Pei Yu. But had Pei Yu really failed to grasp her subtle intentions? Hardly. Yet unwilling to cause her the slightest discomfort, he had apparently turned his thoughts elsewhere. Lowering his eyelids, he tentatively inquired, Lady Su, might there be any elderly villagers nearing their end? None. To prevent him from setting his sights on others in the village, I flatly refused. The eyes of the elderly or children are unsuitable for you. One is on the brink of death, the other too young. You need the eyes of a young adult. There are no young men left in the village, all conscripted. Only the elderly, women, and children remain. Pei Yu fell silent upon hearing this. Su Ruitang pursed her lips, her eyes flickering. A healer with such a kind heart surely wouldn't bear to see her patient suffer blindness forever. Would she? Was she setting her sights on me again? Sure enough, Su Ruitang's next words confirmed my suspicion. Brother Pei commands an entire army. Countless soldiers' lives rest on his shoulders. He absolutely cannot be harmed. The soldiers in the courtyard have slain countless foes, each battle-hardened and decorated with valor. To lose their sight would be a profound loss for our great Jean. Now, it seems only you, Lady Physician, are the most suitable candidate. Pei Yu appeared somewhat moved, gazing at me with hopeful eyes. I knew what he intended to say. In my past life, he had followed Su Ruitang's suggestion and made a promise to me. Lady Physician, you need not worry about your future livelihood. You saved my life, and Pei Yu shall take responsibility for the rest of your days. If you are willing, Pei Yu may take you as his wife. And thus, Su Ruitang came to hate me. She boasted of growing up with Pei Yu since childhood, long considering the position of Duchess of Anghua hers for the taking. Yet she never anticipated my sudden appearance. She regarded me as a thorn in her side, yearning to eliminate me at any cost. This time, I wouldn't give him a chance to speak. I snorted coldly and hurled the teacup in my hand with all my might. Shattered shards flew everywhere, some striking Su Ruitang and drawing a shrill scream. Still unsatisfied, I strode forward and slapped her across the face. Fool! If I'd lost my eyes, who would have treated your beloved Pei brother's poison and performed the eye transplant? Su Ruitang's eyes widened in shock, her expression contorting. Clutching her face, she lunged forward, screaming threats as she tried to strike me. I seized her wrist and demanded harshly, Miss Su, why did you harm General Pei? Su Ruitang froze. You're lying. Oh. I curved my lips. Then why did you try to harm the only person who could save General Pei? Su Ruitang looked flustered, unable to defend herself. I had already stepped forward to apologize to Pei, General Pei. You are the pillar of our nation, bearing immense responsibility. Upon hearing your cousin intended to harm you, I could not help but intervene. Please do not hold it against me. Pei. Su Ruitang. Incredulous, you hit me. And now you're in the right? I looked utterly helpless, Miss Su. I only acted to save your brother Pei. Surely you won't hold it against me? Su Ruitang. This diversion meant they couldn't bring up the eye transplant again. But judging by Su Ruitang's glare, she likely still harbored hatred toward me. Fine. Settling both old and new grudges at once would be most satisfying. As for the source of the eyes, you'll have to figure that out yourselves. Leaving those words behind, I ceded the room to them and retired to my bedroom to rest. A fierce argument soon erupted from the next room. After all, those who survived only because countless soldiers covered their retreat couldn't be lowly, powerless foot soldiers. How could they possibly sacrifice their own futures to save Pei? Such a melodious voice was absent in my past life. Back then, I agreed to Su Ruitang's idiotic proposal, because my father had once been an ordinary soldier too. Only he died on the battlefield, leaving behind not even a single bone. All that was brought back was a thin sheet of parchment, covered densely with my father's scattered words. Heading to the battlefield. Truth be told, I'm terrified. But if none of us go, what becomes of my wife and daughter? Survived. Got cut. It hurts. But I'm still alive. Not too bad. Got paid well this time. When I get back, I'll buy my wife and daughter some good food and nice clothes. Miss them already. War again. When will I ever return home? Yet he never made it home. After the tragic news arrived, my mother fell gravely ill. She spent her days weeping over that brown paper. And within just 3 short months, she passed away. I was only 5 years old then. The villagers were kind and willing to give us food. But I had no home. As for Pei, he was the commander of an entire army. He represented more than just himself. Behind him stood 500,000 soldiers of the Great Gene. If something happened to them, how many would lose their husbands? Their fathers? How many would become homeless like me? That agony, no one understood it better than I. So, even if the price was living forever in darkness, I offered my own eyes. So even if in my past life, Pei and I were sworn enemies, I was still willing to temporarily spare his life. Before long, the noise next door died down. Someone knocked on my door. They must have decided whose eyes to use. I composed myself and got up to open the door. Sure enough, standing outside was an unfamiliar soldier, the one who had been quietly at the back of the crowd. In my past life, I'd been too preoccupied treating Pei to notice such a handsome man among his companions. That's why I'd glanced at him just now. Now, his expression was indifferent as he gave me a slight nod. Miss Physician, we'd be indebted if you would perform the eye-swapping procedure for me and Pei. I froze. I'd never seen him before. But his voice, I remembered it. His name was Enruayu, the illegitimate son of the Marquis of Xianping. In my previous life, after I decided to undergo the eye-swapping procedure, he was the only one who tried to dissuade me. Though his words were few, Lady Physician, are you truly intent on swapping eyes? How will you practice medicine without your sight? This is the skill you rely on to survive. It cannot be compared to mere empty fame or worldly possessions. I suppose by then, Su Ruitang had already spread the rumor that I coveted the wealth and prestige of the Duke of An's household, seeking to use the eye-swapping technique to climb into favor with Pei. Alas! At the time, I failed to grasp the deeper meaning behind Enroyu's words. I merely smiled and replied, I'm just a physician. Without eyes. I still have my nose and mouth. But he commands an entire army, how could he lead without sight? And Ruoyu looked at me deeply. Don't belittle yourself. Later, when Peiyu brought me to Yanmen Pass, I treated wounded soldiers blindly. In his spare moments, he would help me sort medicinal herbs. When soldiers tried to bully me, he always appeared in time to save me. After being stopped, that thug still didn't know his place. Wearing a shameless expression, she's a woman coming to the camp. She should know this kind of thing happens. Why pretend to be some chaste heroine? His buddies chimed in, exactly. We've all seen you bandage our wounds. Why can't we look at you? I was shaking with rage. But Ruoyu stepped in. She's blind and not under military jurisdiction. Treating you is her kindness. You needn't be grateful. But that's no excuse to slander her. But the men only laughed. Blind? So she bandages wounds by feel? We just want to feel ourselves. I instantly caught the implication. These men were definitely not the garrison commander of Dajin. Everyone I've treated knows this, since I handle only weapon wounds. I don't need to touch them. I simply listen to the patient describe the wound's length, depth, whether it's hot or inflamed, then provide the appropriate medicine for them to apply to each other. So they came specifically to harm me. Realizing this, I gained a measure of control. I stopped Ruoyu, whose face darkened as he reached for his sword. Instead, I looked at them with a cowering expression. I only treat the wounded. They were ruthless, they actually had wounds on their bodies. I felt them inch by inch. And they laughed wildly, filled with triumph. But they didn't know I'd laced the medicine with poison. Within an hour, they'd surely dissolve into pools of blood. Yet Ruoyu, likely thinking me too easy to bully, a hopeless case, actually got angry with me and never came back. I thought things would be fine the next day. But when we met again, it was when I was caught in the act. Imprisoned in a pig cage. Paraded through the streets. Uninformed onlookers spat curses at me, calling me unfaithful and a disgrace to women, hurling rotten vegetables and stinking eggs at my body. It was him who stepped in front of me. He defended me before the crowd. But the crowd only wanted a spectacle. How many truly cared about the truth? They only saw what they wanted to see. Soon, Ruoyu was dragged away by his family. He promised to save me, told me to wait for him. But I couldn't drag him down with me. Before losing consciousness, I felt a pang of regret until my dying breath. I'd never seen Ruoyu's face. So this was what he looked like. His brows and eyes were sparse and open. His phoenix-like eyes gleaming. His posture was straight and tall, like a bamboo shoot. Ruoyu froze under my unrestrained gaze, shooting me a surprised look. A momentary pause. A flicker of astonishment in his eyes. Then he quickly averted his gaze. Ahem. Lady physician. When do you plan to act? He seemed quite eager. But I didn't want to waste his eyes. Just don't let him know about this for now. After a moment's thought, I said, the day after tomorrow. I still need to prepare some items and herbs. Peiyu wouldn't last until the day after tomorrow. I brewed him a decoction to slow the spread of the poison. After drinking it, his brows relaxed considerably. The pain must have eased significantly. Seizing the moment, I produced a document. A disclaimer? Su Ruitang gasped. What does this mean? Exactly what it says. I slumped lazily in the wicker chair. I've never performed the eye-swapping technique on a human before. But since you insisted I treat him, should any mishap occur, you assume full responsibility. Su Ruitang immediately protested. She tugged at Peiyu's sleeve. Ready to leave, Brother Pei. We shouldn't treat her here. She doesn't even have confidence in her own method. Let's go to town. Or the city. Or even seek an imperial physician at the palace. Surely there must be safer ways. How laughably naive. If they could find this remote village, they must have made extensive inquiries. I can't speak for distant places, but within Yenmen Commandery, there is no one else who can perform the eye-swapping technique. As for the imperial physicians, well, would they even make it back in time? Fear not. Brother Peiyu would likely succumb to the poison before reaching the palace. Peiyu clearly wasn't that foolish. After a moment's thought, he asked, "May I inquire? Young lady, who was your master?" My master was an itinerant physician. When I was 6, he passed through our village. Seeing my plight, he hired me as an assistant. To his surprise, he discovered my extraordinary talent for medicine. He took me as his disciple and imparted all his knowledge to me. After learning the fundamentals of medicine, I realized such a brilliantly gifted person could never be just an ordinary physician. I began to subtly inquire about his name. But each time, my master would just smile warmly at me. "You call me master. That's enough. Why bother asking my name?" Only after I pestered him relentlessly did he finally reveal his surname, Hua. So I told Peiyu my master's surname is Hua. He's just an obscure country doctor. Peiyu furrowed his brow in thought for a moment, then seemed to grasp something, his expression flushing with subtle excitement. He took the waiver directly, swiftly slitting his index finger with a short blade and asked, "Where do I place my fingerprint?" "The bottom right corner." Peiyu felt his way to do so. But that wasn't enough. Everyone else needed to sign too, confirming they were aware of the matter. They weren't being asked to undergo eye transplants, just to serve as witnesses. No one objected. Except Su Ruitang. She hesitated. "Brother Pei, isn't this woman trying to deliberately harm you?" Admittedly, she was onto something. But I'll just deny it. If you suspect me of ulterior motives, you're welcome to leave. After all, they were the ones seeking help now. Su Ruitang stomped her foot in frustration, then feigned fear of pain. Peiyu simply smeared his own blood onto her finger to complete the signature. I nodded in satisfaction, a hint of amusement flickering in my eyes. But Su Ruitang caught it instantly. Sensing something, she whispered a threat: "If anything happens to Brother Pei, I won't let you off. You'll face extermination of your entire clan." I remained silent, lowering my gaze to hide the coldness in my eyes. What a coincidence, isn't it? I don't plan to let her off either. Su Ruitang and I had deep-seated resentment. When I first arrived in the capital in my previous life, she pretended to take me out to familiarize me with the local customs. Instead, she pushed me into the water when no one was looking. Though I was saved by a fluke, I caught a severe cold. I lay in bed, feverish and delirious. Her first scheme failed, so she hatched a more vicious plot. She laced my medicine with a substance that robbed me of my sense of taste. That's why, on the day of my marriage to Peiyu, I couldn't detect the poison in the wine, leading me into a state of utter despair. That night, after drinking the ceremonial wine, a maid suddenly knocked on the door. She said the cousin's old ailment had flared up, causing unbearable heartache, and requested the young master come see her. I didn't want him to leave, but Peiyu gently slipped his hand free from mine. Yuan. She is the only bloodline my aunt left behind. Nothing must happen to her. Earlier, when I hinted that Su Ruitang wasn't as innocent as she seemed, he'd responded with the same resigned tone. Yuan. She's the only bloodline my aunt left behind. She endured much hardship in her youth, so she doesn't quite know how to interact with others. But her heart is pure, she'd never harm anyone. All that suffering had nowhere to go, so I kept it locked inside. But on our wedding night, I refused to give her the satisfaction. I offered to go help with the diagnosis. He insisted, "You're the bride. You can't leave this door tonight. I'll just take a look and come right back. Be good." I was so drawn to his tenderness that I foolishly sat there waiting for him. But my body grew increasingly hot, an unfamiliar warmth spreading through me, making me feel both tingly and numb. I couldn't help but want to shed my wedding gown to find some relief. By then, I had already sensed something was wrong. But before I could return to my former guest room to fetch herbs to counter the poison, Su Ruatang had already pushed open the door and entered. She circled around me, her voice dripping with smugness. A mere blind girl. Yet you dared to scheme your way into marrying the heir of the Duke of Inez's legitimate wife? How utterly presumptuous. Even if Brother Pei had married you, what difference would it make? I could still have you abandoned here with a single word. But don't despair, though Brother Pei is gone. A groom is still available. You evaded me before. But this time, I'll see who comes to your rescue. Terrified beyond words, I found I lacked even the strength to rise. Just then, footsteps echoed at the doorway. Steady and rhythmic. They sounded strangely familiar. It was Pei Yu. I thought he'd come to rescue me. Instead, he'd come to deliver me to a deeper hell. For he hadn't come alone, he was carrying someone. Without a word, he tossed a beggar at me, then locked the door and left with Su Ruatang. Only I remained, swallowed by despair. The memory of that beggar's hands groping over my body and the nauseating stench tore my heart apart. Rubbing my chest fiercely, I slowly sank into the bathwater. Slowly, I began to plot my revenge. Early the next morning, I set off into the mountains with a bamboo basket on my back. It wasn't until midday that I returned to the small courtyard, my face etched with worry. Now, only Pei Yu and Su Ruatang were staying with me, the others were scattered among the villagers' homes. So when I heard footsteps behind me, I immediately went on high alert. What to do? I still hadn't found the crucial herb. If it remained unfound, General Pei's poison would spread. How could I possibly manage? Sigh. I'd been planning to use my life-saving favor as leverage to climb up the social ladder after rescuing him. Maybe I could even marry him and become the Duchess of Angua. But now, it seemed all my plans were going up in smoke. Should I ask the villagers or soldiers to help search the mountain? But then, the credit for saving his life would be shared. How could I leverage that favor later? No. The book said this herb was essential, no substitute could replace it. I must study its appearance again and return to the mountain this afternoon. I pretended to be engrossed in my studies, lingering in my bedroom a while longer before heading out to prepare lunch. When I returned to my room later, I smiled with satisfaction upon noticing the books on the desk were slightly shifted from their usual positions. That afternoon, of course, I didn't go up the mountain. Instead, I went into town to prepare something else. When I returned that evening, sure enough, Su Ruatang had vanished. Pei Yu looked at me imploringly, Miss Sang, could you please lead everyone up the mountain to search for her? I stared at him in shock. You mean she went into the mountains? Pei Yu nodded with difficulty, yes. She suddenly remembered hearing as a child about a medicinal herb that supposedly works wonders for treating toxins in the eyes. She said she wanted to go look for it. Didn't you send someone with her? I felt a twinge of reproach. She was unfamiliar with the area, how could they let her go alone? Pei Yu lowered his eyelids, his tone pleading, please help us search for her. After finally tricking her into going up the mountain, how could I possibly help? I feigned hesitation. But the eye transplant is tomorrow. I just bought some herbs from town and still need to prepare. Pei Yu fell silent. I then offered, the mountains hold fierce beasts, especially active at night. The village is mostly elderly. Women and children, they likely can't assist. But sending soldiers unfamiliar with these hills worries me too. I'll prepare some medicine packs for you. They'll ward off snakes, insects, and rodents. But if you encounter dangerous beasts, it's best to descend quickly. Hearing this, the awkward expressions on their faces eased somewhat, and they bowed their hands in thanks to me. Preparing the medicine packs wasn't much trouble. Within a quarter of an hour, they were distributed into their hands. Only when passing by Enruayu did I give her a slight nod. General Pei and Enruayu must rest well and conserve their strength. One sentence decided Enruayu's fate. Peiyu raised no objection. Su Ruitang was his cousin, and in their past life, they had been devoted spouses, sharing a lifetime of honor and favor. Yet now, with Su Ruitang's fate unknown, he showed not the slightest concern. Such a selfish, cold-hearted man. Skilled at deception, I must treat him with even greater caution. I remained silently vigilant, unaware that Enruayu had shot me a surprised glance. As if struck by some thought, she flushed crimson. I slept soundly in the room, assuming those who had gone up the mountain wouldn't return so soon, and if they did, it would only be to deliver news of Su Ruitang's death. But I never expected. The moment I opened my eyes, I heard Su Ruitang's sobs. She had returned alive. I nearly ground my teeth to dust. Yet when I saw her torn clothes, her body covered in bruises, and her strangely awkward gait, the hatred in my heart slowly subsided. Under the pretense of helping her, I stepped closer to observe her. Animal fur mingled in her hair, and her skirt was stained with dung and blood. It seemed she hadn't entirely escaped my trap. My heart swelled with satisfaction. Yesterday, I'd sprinkled the drug above my bedroom door and on that book. The moment she pushed the door open and touched them, traces of the powder would cling to her. It was a drug that aroused the lust of wild beasts. I had even marked the approximate location of the so-called medicinal herb in the book, guiding her there. But there was no herb there, only apes indistinguishable from humans. Judging by her state, she had clearly endured inhuman torment. But so what? She caused me to be humiliated by beggars and drowned in the pond. All this is what she deserves. It was a pity she hadn't been devoured by the beasts. I reached out to help her up, intending to take her pulse while I was at it. But before my hand could touch her, she shrieked. "Get away! It's all your fault. You ruined me. You deserve to die. I'll kill you." I sidestepped, feigning hurt as I protested. "When did I ever harm you? You can't pin your misfortune on me just because you went up the mountain alone and suffered." But how could Su Ruitang hear reason now? She screamed hysterically. "It's you! You said you wanted to marry Brother Pei. I only went for the medicine to stop you. You did it on purpose. Didn't you? You just couldn't stand that Brother Pei liked me. That he was only kind to me. So you wanted to get rid of me." The moment she said this, the others' glances, subtle yet unmistakable, immediately fell upon me, making me feel a bit embarrassed. I hadn't expected her to openly reveal the ambiguous feelings between her and Peiyu. Even more unexpected was Peiyu's reaction. He looked deep in thought. He glanced at me, then at Su Ruitang, as if making a difficult decision. Me. Rumors can be deadly. If he publicly repeated that argument from my past life, even if I had no such intentions, I'd be unable to defend myself. I spoke up before he could. "Nonsense. I have someone I like. Why would I compete with you?" Su Ruitang didn't believe me. Peiyu's expression darkened sharply, his tone turning icy. "Who is it? Did I have to invent another person? But who did I know? Everyone in the village knew me." My mind raced. And when I saw Enruayu, a sudden idea lit up. "It's Enruayu. Young Master Enruayu froze, his face flushing crimson. Su Ruitang declared it impossible. He's merely an illegitimate son not recognized by the Marquis's household. Even his name signifies how superfluous he is. How could you possibly choose him over the heir apparent of the Duke of N? You're lying." Hearing this, the flush on Enruayu's cheeks faded slightly, a shadow of gloom settling over his eyes. I shrugged indifferently. "But he's so beautiful." I stated matter-of-factly, "That's exactly the kind of face I like." and Ruoyu's expression froze momentarily, his hand instinctively reaching up to touch his own cheek. When our eyes met, his gaze flickered, and he quickly turned his face away. Yet his crimson-tipped ears were perfectly exposed to my view. I was momentarily transfixed, caught off guard when Su Ruotang shoved me to the ground. She seemed beside herself, brandishing a golden hairpin as she lunged at me. "You're just making excuses. You ruined me. I'll kill you." My pupils contracted sharply. I instinctively closed my eyes and raised my hand to block. But the expected pain never came. She was kicked flying by Ruoyu and collapsed unconscious. And Ruoyu pressed his lips together, offering an awkward explanation. "Miss Sang still needs to swap eyes with Peiyu and me. She can't be injured," he reminded me. Half of Su Ruotang's vengeance had been exacted, the rest could wait for another opportunity. The most urgent task now was to seek revenge on Peiyu. After administering the anesthetic to both of them, they fell asleep. First, I used golden needles to seal Ruoyu's vision. Then, I applied a bit of chilly water to his eyelids. When he woke up, not only would he be blind, but his eyes would also burn fiercely. Finally, I bound them with my specially made silk ribbon. This should keep him deceived. As for Peiyu, how could I possibly give him a good eye? Recalling my past life, I'd prepared meticulously. After he fell unconscious, I rehearsed the eye-swapping procedure hundreds of times. First, I gouged out one eye, enduring the agony to ensure the transplant worked before removing the other. Yet after pouring my heart into helping him, I received that outcome. My hatred for him boiled over. Regaining my breath, I retrieved the dog I'd purchased in town yesterday. This was a rabid dog that attacked people. Its owner had intended to kill it outright, but I intervened. Kept in a persistent coma by golden needles, it was still alive. The instant I pierced its vital point, I removed its eyes. After processing them, I transplanted them into Peiyu. Recalling that not everyone bitten by a rabid dog contracts the disease, I deliberately left a trace of the toxin behind while purging the poison from Peiyu's body. Under my control, it wouldn't be fatal, but if triggered by a specific drug, the poison would take effect rapidly. With this two-pronged approach, I had no doubt Peiyu wouldn't escape. When they awoke, evening had fallen. Peiyu, enduring the pain, urgently asked me, "Was it successful?" And Ruoyu's brow furrowed tightly. He gently massaged his forehead, careful not to touch his eyes. Yet his ears perked up at the question. I didn't beat around the bush, stating plainly, the eye transplant succeeded, but recovery will take time, roughly a month. How much function will return remains uncertain. I added, your eyes were severely damaged by the toxin. Even if they heal later, your vision may never be the same. Peiyu's half-raised lips froze in place. And Ruoyu, however, stroked the white silk with a sigh of relief. As long as I can see again, my eyes won't have been wasted. At this, Peiyu's lips turned down in disappointment. Yet moments later, they curved upward again as he offered his thanks. Thank you, brethren, for your noble assistance this time. Upon returning to the capital, I shall report to His Majesty and detail your merits. As for Miss Sang's life-saving grace, Peiyu could find no adequate repayment. He wished to offer himself. Please, don't say you'll pledge yourself to me. I hurriedly cut him off. In my eyes, he was already as good as dead, and I felt playful, actually. Repaying me is quite simple. Just give me 1,000 taels of gold. Peiyu frowned. Is my life truly worth only 1,000 taels of gold? Excellent. Hand it over then. Can you settle the consultation fee now? Peiyu faltered, his words stumbling awkwardly. Money is precious, but true affection is priceless. How about exchanging brethren for it instead? And Ruoyu quietly lifted his gaze to glance at me. Yet he didn't speak up to object. I felt a bit flustered. Why did he get to decide for Ruoyu? No one answered that question for me. But recalling Su Ruotang's words, I surmised Ruoyu's position at home must be quite awkward. It wasn't my place to pry further. After 3 more days of recuperation, they began packing their belongings to return to Yanmen Pass. Since I needed to change his bandages midway and monitor Peiyu's condition closely, I traveled with them. Su Ruotang tried to stop me, but Peiyu's eyes were steadily improving. He relied on me now, so he wouldn't listen to her wild claims. Shortly after reaching Yanmen Pass, the war intensified again. After hastily changing Peiyu's bandages, he headed to the military camp. I wandered alone within the city walls. In my previous life, blinded, I had remained confined to the pharmacy, never venturing out. Now, however, I wished to gather some information. I casually chose a tea house and sat down. A flood of conversations drifted into my ears. Oh dear. I hear they're at war again. Just the other day they suffered a crushing defeat, heard tens of thousands died. TSK. That general's no good. How could they fight again? Exactly. When the young general was here, did we ever lose? Didn't we always beat the enemy into a bloody pulp? Rumor has it the enemy knew the young general wasn't here, so they got cocky. Hearing this, my curiosity couldn't be contained. The young general you speak of, is that General Peiyu? Heads turned toward me, some sharp eyes flashing caution. But careless ones blurted out, No, we're talking about young General Gu, who was recalled to the capital recently. My confusion deepened, so I went back to ask Ruoyu. Only then did I learn, the commander stationed here before was Marshal Gu, the old general, the Duke of the State. As for the strategist behind the scenes, that was young General Gu, not Peiyu. It was only because both generals had been stationed at the frontier for over a decade and were now summoned back to the capital for their annual report that he was temporarily placed in command. He disregarded the orders left by the 2 generals before their departure to prioritize defense, instead rashly launching an offensive, which led to his defeat. With that, the last shred of hesitation vanished from my heart. Border conflicts were frequent these days, and capable generals were hard to come by. If Peiyu truly possessed divine military prowess and had earned great merit defending Great Jin, then I might have feared that eliminating him would leave Great Jin short of a great commander. This could put us at a disadvantage when facing external threats. And if it caused the displacement of civilians, the guilt would be immense. Thus, another month passed, and Peiyu's eyes had nearly fully recovered. Meanwhile, the new commander-in-chief, General Gu, had returned. I chose to act during the welcome banquet. With so many people present, no one would suspect me. So, after Peiyu handed over the copperfish token, he collapsed to the ground before everyone's eyes. The military doctors rushed to his aid, but through the crowd, Peiyu's gaze never left me. His lips moved silently, uttering words that sent a chill down my spine. Sang Yuan, you dared to deceive me while I was blind. Is this your revenge? In my past life, after they locked me and that beggar together, they returned with a group of men. I was caught in the act. They locked me in a pig cage, consigned to live among the cattle and horses in the backyard. When I came to my senses, I screamed enraged, spilling the entire truth. My voice was so piercing it echoed through the streets, penetrating several walls. Peiyu, having no choice, came out to see me once. He feigned deep affection, urging me to stop my outburst. Faced with my accusations, he flatly denied everything, claiming it was all my imagination. He even said I was blind, unable to see. So how could I accuse him? Back then, I too questioned him relentlessly, every word dripping with blood. Peiyu, I went blind because of you. Why? Then, did you deceive me while I was blind? This was the first time I'd ever brought up my life-saving favor before Peiyu, and it shattered him instantly. Only then did I learn his true motive for marrying me, to secure a reputation for gratitude. After all, I was just a frail woman who'd lost her sight for him. To the world, providing for my future, ensuring I'd never want for food or clothing, was the best repayment. The current emperor values loyalty, filial piety, and righteousness. Upon hearing this, he even praised Peiyu and instructed him to treat me well. Peiyu had considered maintaining a respectful distance from me, but every time he saw my eyes, he felt they were reminding him of his debt. Especially after he overheard others speaking of me, they say she gave her eyes to Peiyu. Such a young age. How pitiful. Surely Peiyu will treat her well? Of course he will. It's a life-saving debt. If he mistreats her, he'd be struck by lightning. He didn't want to be held hostage by others' opinions, nor live his life shackled by gratitude. So he and Su Ruatang conspired to cast him as the victim, extricating himself from that debt. I suppose that's the truth of a bowl of rice creates gratitude. A bushel breeds resentment. How the benefactor ends up resented, it remains beyond my comprehension. Now that Peiyu is dead, all past grievances between us have vanished. I no longer wish to dissect the meaning behind his dying words. What I never anticipated was my own arrest. Su Ruatang testified against me. All individuals involved in the case were taken to the capital for investigation. The coroner had already examined Peiyu's body, confirming he died from poisoning. He was poisoned before he even met me. He succumbed to the poison in plain sight. I even produced the liability waiver they signed back then. Proving I had no certainty about the outcome that day, they insisted I save him. And Ruayu and the others kneeling beside me corroborated my account. Yet Su Ruatang stubbornly insisted I was responsible. Sang Yuan is a physician. She can even transplant eyes. How could she fail to purge the poison? She must have done it deliberately. To kill Brother Pei. I must admit, she had a point. But before I could speak, the imperial physician waiting nearby refuted her claim. This poison is vicious. If any residue remained in the body, the patient would not have survived beyond 7 days. With that, the physician offered me a kind smile. Miss Sang, your skill in restoring health is remarkable. Not only did you purge the toxin, but you also performed an eye transplant, truly exceptional. Might your master be surnamed Hua? I nodded blankly. The physician stroked his beard, his expression one of understanding. So it is. Old Master Hua once served in the palace himself. He later resigned after offending someone. To encounter his disciple today, what a coincidence. No wonder my master refused to reveal his name. He must have feared implicating me. Su Ruatang seized upon this as if she'd found a handle. Immediately kneeling and kowtowing, Your Majesty. They share a past. He's shielding Sang Yuan. The imperial physician's beard bristled with fury. Nonsense. My reputation is known throughout the capital. Would I risk it all for some little girl? His demeanor didn't seem feigned. Perhaps he was unaware of my master's mastery in sealing poison with golden needles. I exhaled softly in relief. Yet this brought the case full circle. Peiyu died from poisoning. But where did the poison come from? When the Minister of Justice overseeing the investigation voiced this question, I keenly noticed a flicker of panic in Su Ruatang's eyes. A thought struck me. Perhaps we should investigate the cause of Peiyu's first poisoning? At these words, Su Ruatang instantly clenched his fists, his previously straight back subtly slumping. His Majesty, with his keen insight, immediately granted my request. This investigation lasted a month and actually uncovered something. On her journey to Yanmen Pass, Su Ruatang had rescued a man, a spy. When Peiyu led his troops on that surprise attack, it was Su Ruatang who leaked the intelligence, causing them to be surrounded and forced to flee. It was during this escape that they were poisoned. In other words, Su Ruatang had committed treason by aiding the enemy. Her panic proved she wasn't entirely unaware. Yet Su Ruatang desperately protested, "I did save someone. But he was merely a beggar, no spy. I took pity on him and gave him food." "How is that treason?" The beggar was then brought before us. It was none other than the man who had been imprisoned with me in the bridal chamber in my previous life, the one who had deceived and humiliated me. His voice and scent were etched deep into my bones. Even if I were reduced to ashes, I would never forget him. I couldn't hold back and lunged forward, kicking him viciously. Though I was quickly restrained by the imperial guards. It had already caught the emperor's attention. His expression was skeptical. His tone probing. "You know him?" "I do not." I shook my head. The hatred in my eyes undimmed. "But traitors deserve death." These words found deep favor with His Majesty. They sealed Su Ruatang's fate outright. Once it was confirmed the beggar was indeed an enemy spy. Su Ruatang's testimony was not only invalidated, but she herself was charged with poisoning Peiyu. Coincidentally, she had once asked that beggar to procure poison for her. The poison he gave her was precisely the same toxin that killed Peiyu. Su Ruatang desperately protested her innocence, claiming the poison was meant for me and that she never intended to harm Peiyu. But no one believed her anymore. Even Pei's mother looked utterly disappointed. "Where was my only son? He was your own cousin, whom you cherished since childhood. How could you be so heartless?" The Duke of N's household refused to intervene, leaving her utterly abandoned. Thus, Su Ruatang was swiftly convicted. Treason against the state normally warranted execution of 9 generations of her family. Yet the benevolent emperor punished only Su Ruatang herself. She and the beggar. Sentenced to Lingqi. I witnessed the execution and even helped administer an injection to keep them conscious throughout. The scene was gruesome. Yet that blood and those screams slowly cleansed the bitterness in my heart. I thought, at last I need not be bound by the past, I can lift my gaze toward the horizon. This time, I was truly reborn. Story Epilogue. I declined the emperor's offer to remain in the palace and treat the imperial consorts. After all, serving the sovereign is like walking with a tiger. I longed instead to wander the world like my master, to experience diverse cultures and landscapes, to pursue the highest truths of medicine. Yet before leaving the capital, one matter remained. I arranged to meet in Ruayu. He wore a crescent moon-colored brocade robe, his eyes veiled by a silk ribbon of the same hue. His jet-black hair cascaded over his shoulders. An elegance beyond words. A breeze stirred, lifting a strand of hair that drifted across his jade-like skin before settling on his crimson lips, a vision so beautiful it seemed painted. I swallowed hard and silently sipped my cool tea, to calm my nerves. And Ruayu turned his gaze at the sound, a faint smile curving his lips. I dared not lift my eyes, keeping my gaze lowered as I explained my purpose. But Ruayu refused. "I don't want someone else's eyes. That's just an excuse." I'd never used the technique of acupuncture to block sight for such a long time. I feared if I delayed any longer, he might truly become blind. In desperation, I grabbed his hand. "You don't need someone else's eyes. I can restore your sight myself." And Ruayu's hand trembled, a hint of shock visible. His cheeks slowly flushed crimson. His eyelashes quivered. After a moment of contemplation with lowered eyes, his expression hardened into resolve. He turned his hand to grasp mine, murmuring softly, "Miss Sang, with such profound kindness and loyalty, I shall not disappoint your trust." Though puzzled, I felt relief at his agreement to treatment. I chose nightfall for the procedure, when the light was soft, easing his gradual adjustment from darkness to brightness. After removing the silk cloth, he blinked several times. His eyes were vacant, and he seemed somewhat lost and helpless. I reached out to place my hand on his eyes, massaging the acupoints to help the blood flow through his meridians. Before long, A glimmer of surprise appeared in his eyes. It seemed he was slowly recovering. I breathed a sigh of relief and prepared to push the door open to leave. But Ruayu stopped me. He lifted his head to look at me. His eyes flickering. His ears flushed crimson. Miss Sang healed my eyes. I have no way to repay you. Except to offer myself. I instinctively waved my hands to refuse. And Ruayu spoke the rest of his words slowly and deliberately. And Ruayu wishes to marry you as her husband. I pledge to hold you as my master. I shall obey without question. Respond without hesitation. As he spoke, and Ruayu placed my hands in his palms. Then gently rested his chin upon them. His expression solemn as he gazed at me. I beg your mercy. How could he be so skilled? I couldn't handle it. I absolutely couldn't handle it. I hastily drafted a contract. Flushed as I pushed it toward him, seal it with your blood. Without even glancing at it. He bit his index finger and pressed it down. He couldn't possibly see the words now. I gasped, aren't you afraid this is a contract selling yourself? And Ruayu arched an eyebrow. A soft chuckle escaping him, that wouldn't be so bad either. Seeing no pretense in him. A sudden flicker of joy shot through my heart. Some resistance remained. Yet I felt a strange sense of release. Last life. I entrusted myself to the wrong person. Fortunately, I hadn't lost the courage to start over. The end.